What if the key to knowing everything, truth, meaning, identity, was hidden in one simple question? What is? Sounds like nonsense, right? But here's the wild part. Most people, seriously almost everyone, can't answer it. And that's a huge problem, because if we can't explain what is, we can't explain what it means to be. And if we can't explain being, then how can we possibly understand what it means to be human? And if we don't know what we are, how could we ever expect to be happy, or to be whole, to become what we were made to be? Today, truth is treated like content. It's clickable, swipeable, forgettable. We scroll endlessly, not to understand, but to stimulate. We curate our feeds, customize our realities, and drown in data. We Google everything, but we no longer know what it means to know. Within seconds, someone could find out which country had the most gold medals in the 1968 Olympics, but how long would it take for them to explain what truth is, or what it means to exist? We've built a tower of information without a single brick of wisdom. Algorithms tell us what we want. Ads tell us who we are, and if something doesn't prove to be useful or provoke outrage, we assume it has no meaning. We are overstimulated and underformed. We absorb content, but we don't ask questions. We consume symbols, but we forget the source of meaning. But in the last video, we explored something deeper. The truth isn't a cold, hard fact. It's a presence. It doesn't just inform, but it invites. It calls, it convicts, it transforms. And that only makes sense if reality isn't mute, but structured in a way that can speak. If truth calls, then being itself must be relational. It's not inert or not accidental, but ordered so that you can know it. Which brings us here. This isn't just about the structure of reality. It's about our ability to know that reality. Every act of knowing reality, every real insight requires a subject, an object, and a relation. A knower, a thing that is known, and the means by which the two connect. We see this structure echoed everywhere, even in how we speak. In language, a simple sentence requires three parts: the subject, who, what we're talking about; the predicate, what is being said about the object; and the copula, the connector, usually a verb that unites them into meaning. For example, the tree grows. Subject, the tree; predicate, grows; copula, is growing. Without that act of relation, language breaks apart. You don't have meaning at all. This isn't just a rule of grammar, it's a metaphysical insight. It reveals that understanding depends on relation, just like being itself does. But you don't absorb the world, you grasp its form, its logos, or its order. In every real act of knowing, you're not just observing, you're entering into something. You're participating in a structure that reflects the divine. To know something truly is to mirror this divine act, to proceed from, through, and in an act of correspondence. And that's a triadic pattern. It's not just linguistic or logical, it's the very nature of being, because to know anything truly is already to participate, whether you realize it or not, in the divine structure of reality. For example, the tree participates in reality by growing. That's how it relates, and that's the structure of objective reality, distinction and relation, which is Trinitarian. And at the root of metaphysical inquiry lies a hauntingly simple question. Why is there something rather than nothing, and something that can be known? Before we ask how things work or what they're made of, we're confronted with the brute fact that they are. Being exists. And not only does it exist, you can know it and manipulate it in a way that shows that you possess this knowledge in your own being. That should strike us as strange. Why is there being at all, and why is it structured in such a way that it can be understood? This question itself is the domain of metaphysics, the study of being qua being, or being as it is. It doesn't stop at form or function, but it seeks the foundational principles that make existence, knowledge, and meaning possible. While science asks how and logic tells us what follows, metaphysics asks why anything makes sense in the first place. It doesn't assume order, it interrogates it. It doesn't rely on identity and causality, it tries to uncover what grounds those things. In that sense, metaphysics is not one discipline among many. It is the precondition for every discipline. Physics, biology, psychology, even mathematics, all of them presuppose intelligibility. They assume that reality is ordered, consistent, and knowable, but they don't explain why. Metaphysics is where we stop taking those assumptions for granted, because without it, we're left floating. Truth becomes whatever works. Goodness becomes based on preference, and being becomes a statistical accident. But here's the turn. Just as metaphysics makes science possible, it also makes knowing possible. Every act of knowing assumes that reality is already structured in a way that can be understood. And that structure is not arbitrary. It's not flat. It is relational. Because to know anything at all, there must be a subject, relation, and an object. For example, the man catches the ball. The subject, which is the knower, who knows through the relation, which is the man. An object, the thing that is known, the ball which is being caught, and a relation, the act of knowing through participating in both realities, man and ball. This triadic shape of knowledge is not just practical, it's metaphysical. It reflects something deeper about the way being itself is ordered, which brings us to the heart of this series. The structure that makes being intelligible is the same structure that makes knowing possible. And that structure, origin, form, and relation, is nothing less than Trinitarian. It has three parts which in themselves make up the whole of reality. They are all extensions of reality, consubstantially. In the classical tradition, to be was not merely to occupy space or persist through time. To be was to participate in a higher order of intelligibility. Being was not inert, it was expressive, ordered, and teleological. This tradition held that every being possesses in essence what it is, an act of existence, that which it is. Essence without existence is a blueprint with no structure. Existence without essence is an incoherent flux, a state of chaos. Only through their union can we speak of anything real. If we take out one aspect of intelligible reality, it becomes inherently unknowable. For example, if I say man ball, you have no clue what I mean. Is the man a ball? Is the ball in the shape of a man? Is the man eating a ball? Well, what if I remove the object, catches the ball? We have a relation and distinction, but this makes no sense because there isn't a way to tell what the ball is relating to. Take another example. A tree is not merely a collection of molecules arranged in a certain way. It is a being with intrinsic form and finality. It grows downward to root, upward towards the sun, and outward to bear fruit. Its motion is not random. It's meaningful, ordered towards its own fulfillment. And this isn't just true of one or two trees, but all trees. And the more we observe how trees interact and relate to the world, whether height or color, we can start to say something about what it means to be a tree and where that tree fits in relation to the rest of nature. This model of reality is both hierarchical and harmonious. Causes are not merely efficient, but formal and final. A sculptor doesn't just chisel stone by force, he does so according to a form and for a purpose. This metaphysically rich structure makes knowledge possible. The world isn't just noise, it's a logos, a logical ordering of hierarchical relation. To know is to perceive the forms embedded in things. To understand was to participate in their intelligibility. And crucially, this system is participatory. Nothing explained itself. Being is received. Every act of existence pointed beyond itself to something more fundamental. The world is grounded in a cascade of caused being, terminating in pure act, that which simply is. This metaphysical dependency of essence of existence upon source mirrors a triadic structure. There is a source of being, pure act, the form through which that being is known, and the dynamic relation through which that being is shared. Though not explicitly Trinitarian, meaning each act of knowing or relating is God itself, but the structure is made possible by God. The vision of God lays the scaffolding. It reveals a world that is intelligible because it is structured in a triadic mode: origin, expression, and participation. Modern metaphysics rejected this, if we can even call it metaphysics. It reduced being to extension, quantity and motion, pure physics, but to have a coherent physics, you need to have a metaphysics, that which makes physics possible. This inherent purpose and order was dismissed as a psychological projection. Form became a convenient fiction. Now we are told a tree is just matter organized by chance and necessity. There is no final cause, only mechanical cause. And if purpose exists, it exists solely in our minds. This shift from participation to projection fractured not only metaphysics, but epistemology. If things no longer possess real meaning, then truth becomes subjective. Knowing becomes manipulation. It is the difference between reading a book and cutting it into pieces to weigh the pages, and say the weight is the actual value of the book. How many atoms does it have? The result is not a more accurate world, but a thinner one, a world without interiority, depth, or direction. And yet the older vision still haunts us. We speak of purpose, we praise beauty, we fight for justice, but why? Because deep down we still believe being is meaningful. Perhaps the classical vision, grounded in form, purpose, and participation, offers not just a metaphysics, but a way back to coherence. And perhaps that coherence, when seen clearly, is not just philosophical, it is Trinitarian. In classical metaphysics, the transcendentals, being, truth, goodness, and unity, are not attributes tacked onto reality. They are coextensive with being itself. Wherever being is found, these things are found. Being is the fact that something is. Truth is being as known. Goodness is being as desirable. Unity is being as ordered and whole. These aren't arbitrary categories, they are the conditions that make experience possible. They are the ways being shows itself. And if being is the most fundamental act of all, then these transcendentals reveal how being operates. And what we find, once again, is a triadic structure. Let's look deeper. Being corresponds to the source, the uncaused cause, the source of all that exists. The Father, or the source, is not made, not begotten, but is pure act, subsisting being itself. In him we find the ground of what is, that from which all else proceeds. Truth corresponds to the word, the logos, the self-expression of the source of being. The Son of the source of being is the intelligibility of that same being. Its form, its inner logic, the perfect knowledge the Father has of himself, just as all things are made through the Logos, all truth flows from this eternal articulation. Goodness and unity correspond to the Spirit, the personal bond of love between Father and Son. Goodness is being as gift, as something given, delighted in, and shared, and unity is the completion of that gift. The harmonious oneness produced by love. The Spirit is that unity in gift, proceeding from both as communion of both. So when we speak of the transcendentals, we're not just speaking of abstract concepts. We are analogously describing the inner life of God, reflected in every act of creation and every act of experience. And just as these transcendentals structure being, they also structure epistemology, the ability to know anything. There must be a thing that is, a form that could be understood, and a union between the knower and the known, the object and the subject. The act of knowing itself follows this Trinitarian pattern. Knowledge is not passive reception. It is participation in the divine structure. It isn't merely the alignment of neurons, but the alignment of the mind with logos through relation. Our language reflects this. It is a metaphysical architecture, and the more we contemplate the transcendentals, the more we see all knowledge, all order, all value rests on this triune foundation. The transcendentals are not categories we project. They are the way the world participates in God, being itself. Now, why does all this matter? Because without metaphysics, we lose the ability to make sense of anything, starting with ourselves. We confuse utility with truth. appetite with goodness, and novelty with beauty. We drift from one opinion to another, not because we're open-minded, but because we lack first principles, and yet every moment of your life assumes those principles that you lack. When you say something is unjust, you assume a standard of justice. When you fall in love, you don't believe you're experiencing a chemical illusion, you believe it's real. When you cry or weep over your suffering, you presuppose that things ought to be differently. You live like metaphysics is true, because it is. But not just any metaphysics, only a metaphysical structure that is relational, intelligible, and participatory by nature. Through this, you can explain your experience of meaning, value, and knowledge objectively. Only a structure like this that grounds both being and knowing can unify the intellect, the heart, and the will. And that structure, again, is Trinitarian. To know is to participate in the structure of being. To love is to echo the possession of divine communion. To exist is to be drawn into relation, source, word, and breath. Most people make the mistake that the Trinity is a puzzle to be solved, but it's not. It's the pattern of all reality. The Father is the ground of being, the one whom from all things proceed. The Son is the form of that being, the logos through whom all things are made. The Spirit is the unity of being, the gift of love through which all things return. Your intellect, yes, you personally, reflects this logos. Your will seeks the good. Your being longs for unity. And that longing isn't just accidental, it's ontological. To ask what is being is to ask, what am I for? What is truth for? To ask what is goodness is to ask, what fulfills me? What am I supposed to be doing? And the answer to all of these is not just a concept or a law, it's not a feeling, but it is a communion of persons. The foundation of being is not brute force, it is perfect love, ceaselessly poured out. It's not cold abstraction, but burning relation. Not isolation, but eternal communion. The deepest reality is not a thing to be grasped. It is a love to be entered. Truth does have a face, and goodness has a name. Being sings in a three-part harmony.